Good evening, everyone. Wow, that's quite loud. Welcome to the November 13th meeting of the Transportation Mobility Advisory Commission, what we call TransMAC. We are a citizen-led advisory board that was created by the voters of Orange County in November 2024 to review our transportation system. We have three main duties. One is to review and make recommendations on the annual transportation budget to the Board of County Commissioners. We also have the authority to review past expenditures for efficiency and effectiveness, and also consider new transportation options that are coming down the pike. How do we get ahead of the transportation game here in Orange County? So I want to welcome everyone here in the room and also watching at home on Orange TV. I know the crowds are getting bigger every meeting, but we are here on the road again for our second district meeting here in District 6 in Barnett Park. So it's wonderful to be out here in the district. We are a citizen-led board, so it's always been important for us as a commission to come to the people because we represent you, and we can't do this without you, so we're very excited to be here. Last month, we had our first district meeting in District 3, and then next month, we'll be headed out west, out into District 1. So looking forward to those opportunities. So just a brief overview of what we're going to cover here this evening. A little bit later, we're going to hear from Commissioner Scott, the District 6 Commissioner. He's going to come tell us all about, he's very familiar, very passionate about transportation in his district. So we're going to hear in depth about what his thoughts are and what he thinks we need to do to improve the situation out here in District 6. But we're also going to hear about our Vision Zero program, which was recently adopted, I think in August of 2024. Humberto gives me the head nod. That is correct. So we're going to hear all about how we plan to make our roads safer here in Orange County. And we're also going to hear about some of the projects that are being worked on right now in District 6. I know it's going to be very important to the residents. What are we doing right now and in the near future to help your transportation system out here? So we'll hear about that as well. I'm going to ask the Commission to give me a little leeway today. I worked for the first time today in the last month and a half, so I may be a little sleepy, not used to this working 8 hours. I don't know how you guys do it, but I'm here, and we're going to give it a shot. But we are in luck tonight. The Jets are on Thursday Night Football, so we don't got to rush out of here. We can take our time. If we want to pull an R-Nutter, we can do that. Go Birds, as always. I love all the good Go Birds. But I do have Drake May in fantasy for the Patriots, so we've got to keep that in mind. Okay, but the first thing we're going to do is start with our Pledge of Allegiance, so if everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everybody. The first thing on our agenda is Commissioner Scott, but I know he's going to be here in a few minutes, so we'll skip over that for now. But as soon as Commissioner Scott arrives, we'll bring him right up to the podium as soon as we can to hear his words. But the first thing we're going to do now is start with our public comment period. Have we received any requests for public comment? Okay, so we haven't received any requests yet, but I am going to go ahead and open up the floor to anyone who hasn't submitted a card yet. If you'd like to make a public comment, just come up here to the podium and state your name, address, and we'll give you 3 minutes. We'd love to hear about your thoughts about transportation out here in Division 6. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak this time? Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move right along then to our consent agenda. We only have one item on there today. Is the approval and execution of the minutes from our last meeting of October 9th, 2025. Did anyone have a chance to review the minutes and have any edits, deletions, suggestions, any comments? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Any motion? Is that a motion, Zach?
Motion to approve.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the minutes from Member Moldoff, seconded by Member Olson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay. Humberto, we're going right to you. I didn't think we were going to get to you so fast, but here we go. We're going right up to you because everyone is waiting to hear what you have to say. So Humberto Castiera from the county is kind of I call him the godfather of the Vision Zero plan, but he's going to tell us all about what we're working on, how we're going to make our streets safer for all our road users. So Humberto, welcome this evening.
Good evening. My name is Humberto Castellaro, and it is a pleasure. Okay. Yes. All right. Good evening again. My name is Humberto Castellaro, and it is a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Thank you so much, Lauren Torres, for inviting me to speak to you to the TransMAC commissioners. I don't know if you can see the PowerPoint presentation, or maybe if those slides could be dim, or if you have copies of the presentation. If not, I will be moving right along. So today I'm going to be presenting about Division Zero, not only about the strategy that we had in place, how we came about in developing Division Zero, but also what is the future for us. And I think that the future is bright. So when we talk about Vision Zero in today's presentation, we'll talk about the purpose, the background, the action plan overview, the 4 E's, which that is the way that we communicate with the public, and also the safety initiatives. If you can see to the right, that is our logo. And the logo, it says Vision Zero, Countdown to Zero, but you can see the orange. So the orange, it has the leaf, but then the blue and the white portion is very important. So the blue, it is the iris, which it represents an eye. But then the white, it is the pupil, but also it represents a memorial marker. So that is just to bring awareness to the fatalities that we have in our transportation system, and that is our logo for Division Zero. So the purpose for us is to eliminate fatalities and severe injuries by the year 2040. And when we talk about 2040, that was a date that we discussed at length, because this is a commitment from the county, and we needed to put a date. Some of the debate was maybe 2045, maybe 2050, but time is of the essence, and we recognize that if we are not committed to eliminate the fatalities and the severe injuries, so 2040 was the date. It was quite aggressive. And we'll talk a little bit more about it. Also the components of the Division Zero action plan, and why this is a great document that we can use as we look at the lens, the transportation projects, and also the culture about safety first. We all understand about safety and the implications if there is a fatality in our corridor. If you have been following the news, then we know that there was just 3 recent fatalities that we had. Young teenagers, 17 and 13, and that was on Welch Road. And that is heartbreaking for the community. But what are we doing about it? And why do we have to continue hearing this on the news? So part of the thing is, where have we been and how have we bring this topic to the conversation in recent years? So there's an organization that is called Smart Growth America. They have been in business for the last 25 years. About 10 years ago, they started putting this report out that it was called Dangerous by Design. So the report basically took some data and they indicated the top 20 urban or municipal areas that we have the greatest number of fatalities for pedestrians nationwide. Having said that, this area, the area of Orlando, Kissimmee, and Sanford, for the last 10 years, with the exception of the last 2, we were number 1 in the nation. And that was very alarming. So we started saying, what can we do? It's not that we have been doing nothing. It is that maybe it's not enough, or maybe we should take a different strategy. How can we bring this to the forefront? So the data that it was taken, this is the last report, 2024. So we're number 18. What does that mean? Yes, that we have made some improvements, but still we are within the top 20, and this is something not to be proud about, but to be cognizant that we must continue our efforts. Also, if you look within this graph, out of the top 20, 8 are within the state of Florida. So that is very alarming, and we all must do something. Part of this, as Mr. Grimmer alluded, was that the adoption of the Vision Zero Action Plan, it was in August 27, 2024. There was a lot of hard work. I want to commend Metro Plan because they approached Orange County, the other 2 counties within Central Florida, and the 22 municipalities, and they said, let's go ahead and submit for a grant, the Safe Streets for All. So we were the lucky recipient of $3.7 million out of part of that grant $400,000 were allocated to Orange County so we could develop this Vision Zero action plan. So they were very generous. There was a 20% match, and they didn't ask for the match. So we are very grateful to our partners. The other thing is, what are the safety countermeasures? Because we must be strategic in everything that we do, but also what is the strategy and the framework. And I do believe that you have, as part of your committee, that you're here to ask, what can we do? What are the strategies? Is there a new way of looking at things, and how can we address this epidemic? The other thing that we recognized early on as we were part of the stakeholders committee was that we cannot do this in our own, that we need to gather and to bring our strategic partners. So we have the Florida Department of Transportation, Metroplan, the Orange County Sheriff Office, Orange County Public Schools, counties, municipalities, we have links. So everything, it had to be with the mandate from Mayor Demings, innovation, collaboration, and inclusion. That is the key for us to be successful. When we talk about the Vision Zero action plan, and I totally believe that this document, it is superb, the way that it was developed. Took a little bit of planning and some foresight, but at the same time, this document, it is a live document that we can use to address the problems today, but also we can plan into the future. Some of the components or chapters are the introduction, addressing the why to begin with. Also, because we know that when we have fatalities, this is very heart-wrenching, but let's take a look at the data. Do a deep dive just to make sure that not only we can address something emotionally, but also looking at the crash data so we can have before and after and seeing if we are making progress. Also the public engagement. How are we addressing this? Approaching our communities. How are we allowing them to participate? Also the policy review and the benchmarkings. And this was very critical because our commissioners reviewed this document. It takes a village to raise a safe transportation system. And without our commissioners and our elected officials being committed for us to be successful, we can go nowhere. So it was very important. And from day one, we had complete support. Also, what are the tools that we're developing with the toolkit, prioritization, and last but not least, the plan recommendation, and where do we go from there? So just to begin, 7 lives. So 0, we will not accept anything but 0. Also, we recognize how many people live in our community. 1.4 million people are residents within Orange County, but also we have about 75 million visitors that they come and they enjoy this area in our parks, and they use our roads. So we have a commitment not only to our residents to make sure that we achieve this goal, but also to the people that come and visit us. And last but not least, let's just make sure that we are data-driven as we continue making the improvements, utilizing the safe system approach. Okay. So what is the safe system approach? The federal government, they started with Division Zero, and then they transitioned in what they call the safe systems approach. But this is, in essence, very simple. You can see the figure on the right, but in essence, it's based on principles to create a safety culture, but also to have 5 elements. So let me talk about the 5 elements. So looking at the top left corner, it talks about number 1, safer people. Number 2, we need to have safer vehicles. We need to have safer speeds, safer roads, and post-crash. But the principles are based on something that perhaps we understood it, but we didn't comprehend it well enough. Number 1 is that death and serious injuries, and this is on the perimeter of the circle. It says death and serious injuries are unacceptable. The moment that we accept that deaths are okay, that is the moment that we lost the battle, and we must, this is unacceptable. What can we do? The humans make mistakes, and the humans are vulnerable. I don't know about you, but when my older daughter was learning how to drive, and she took her driver's license test, she aced it. Did that give me any comfort? No. Why? Because she didn't have the experience. So I was praying. I had my heart in my mouth, and I said, call me. Well, don't call me while you drive, but text me before you drive. And here, so it takes some time. Some our young drivers, they don't have that experience, and we must account for that. Also, that safety is proactive. We must not wait until a death occurs for us to do something. Redundancy is critical, and redundancy, as many people, and as you go through our projects, well, I already said that the posted speed limit was 25 miles per hour, but maybe we should provide speed feedback signs that it reinforce what we already had said before. So there is a component to that, and we are all here to make sure that this happens. So in looking at the crash data, so we took 5 years of crash data that it was available at the time. It was from 2018 to 2022. We use the Signal 4 analytics, the crash data, and it comes from the Florida Department of Transportation, and that's what everybody uses. So what you can see there on the graph, and you have it also on your printouts, is if we take a look at the colors, the modes of transportation, vehicles and trucks are pink, pedestrians are blue, bicycles are orange, and the motorcycles are green. If you look at the top row, pretty much everything is pink. What does that mean? That out of all the crashes, 85, close to 90%, they are vehicles oriented. But let's take a look at the bottom row. That is for fatalities. So as you can see, the blue, the orange, and the green, you can see that is 46%. 46% of all fatalities, it is vulnerable users, pedestrians, bicycles, and motorcycles. And that is very critical for us to understand how to address this. Also, the public engagement, it was very critical. As we were, sometimes, as a resident, you say, when did this happen? I was never informed. So we took it to heart just to make sure that we had public meetings in every district, that we invited them. We had our consultants, we presented, but also we had some grassroots meetings, as you can see both from the picture, some outdoor activities. But the key was, let's make sure that we include everybody early on, because the comments from the community, from everybody involved, it was critical to the success. Also, we developed our social media content, spreading awareness of the public meetings at the various outlets. What did we hear? So on the bottom right-hand corner, some of the things that people said. Schools need speed camera enforcement. I am here to tell you that in August of this year, the Board of County Commissioners, they have approved or executed an ordinance for us to implement the school zone automated speed enforcement cameras. We are putting a request for proposal. I believe that is out, but the goal is that we're going to be starting with 6 to 12 schools across all the districts to begin with this program, but the goal is to continue increasing this. Also, we need speed bumps, speed cameras, lower the speed limit on arterials roads. I just would like to pause and just to tell you a little bit about a statistic when we talk about speeding. If a pedestrian is struck by a vehicle at 20 miles per hour, the rate of survival is 90%. Okay, so lower speeds. But if a pedestrian gets struck at 40 miles per hour, we're just doubling the speed. I mean, somebody might say, we just double the speed. What is the rate of survival? Somebody gets to venture? 2%. Okay, 10%. Yes, so it's not linear. It is exponential. Unfortunately, in the Oak Ridge High School, that this was this young lady, there were 2 signals. She decided to cross mid-block. The car that struck her was traveling at the speed limit, 45 miles per hour. So, unfortunately, what it happened, part of the statistics. So we must be very cognizant that whatever we can reduce the speed limits, but also people can get safely to their destination, it is appropriate. And there are several mechanisms to deal with traffic, to deal with congestion. But safety should never, in my opinion, should never be compromised. Safety first is our culture. Also, what do we do within the existing documents that we have? And this is very critical because we're coming from a national approach to a state approach, then to a local approach. So how do we transition, but also how do we ingest all of that information? So the critical things as we were developing the Vision Zero Action Plan was that also we were developing our Orange County Code, that it was approved. I don't know if in Tallahassee still, but the previous one, it was from 1959, so definitely there were no reference to the Vision Zero. So the Orange Code needed to have the language for us to direct how to implement it, but also the Vision 2050, and that is the comprehensive plan. We have several documents. One is the ADA transition plan, and also we have our sustainability. But the bottom line is that the Vision Zero language should be included into every document that we use in Orange County to promote the safety first culture. Now developing the countermeasures. So shall we start from scratch? And we say, hell no, because that was too much work. But what we started doing is, what about the national guidelines? So they have their proven safety countermeasures. So what you see here is the national guidelines that they have. So they have broken this into speed management, and they have variable speed limits. They have cameras, then they have roadway departures. Also they have intersections, where runabouts, where signalized, where median separation. Also they have cross-cutting like lighting, roadway safety audits. Then we go to the pedestrian and bicycles. We talk about roadway reconfiguration, walkways, so on and so forth. So what we decided was, this is a very good start. So the confusion is, this toolkit that we want to do, is this only for engineers and planners? No. We wanted to make sure that this toolkit was for the layman person, somebody that they understand that there's a safety problem in their neighborhood, but they can use this document also as the baseline and say, you know, speed management, let me see what is in here. Oh, I understand. So what we did was that those categories were simplified into these terms. We're going to call it just signals, signing and striping, bikeways, pedestrian facilities, intersection, and roadways, speed management, and other strategies. So that is very simple language, so we all can approach and engage in a conversation from common ground. But also what we did, that it has, at least I am not aware that it has been done anywhere else, is that we have these safety cars, and if you, hopefully you can see it. So we have 50 safety countermeasures, and there is a safety car for each one of these countermeasures. So we start with the title, we talk about what it is, and also if this was initially part of the federal highway safety countermeasures. Also we talk about the crash effectiveness, reduction effectiveness, low, medium, or high. Also there is a clock in there. If the clock is only filling a quarter of the time, is that we can implement it quickly. If the full clock is highlighted, is that this is going to be taking some time. Also, we have the dollar signs. $1 sign indicates that this is cost effective and we can implement it right away. $3, $4 signs, it says that we are going to be asking for budget. So that's where the priorities will take into place. Then we have some additional information. On the right hand, we have some information for our planners and designers. We talk about the Florida Design Manual. We quote the chapter where they can find that information. So these safety cards, they are not only for the planners and for the designers, but this is for the public. So if I am a member of an HOA and I want to engage the county, I go there and I will do my own research and I say, this is my problem. Okay, I see what are the countermeasures, and then I approach any and all of us and say, I would like to implement this. Now you are supposed to tell me, well, let's talk about it. You know, let's get some analysis, but at least we can have some common ground. Also what we did, And this is also, and after I finish with this slide, I want to bring attention to the paper that I have. So part of this is that when we were talking about the high injury network crashes, this is where we have the most amount of crashes. So MetroPlan, they collected the data and they had a high injury network. But what we told them is fine and good that you have the DOT roads and you have some of these, but what about for us in Orange County? Said, I cannot go to the county in good conscience and say, let me just finance all the DOT roads. Although they need to be financed, we have our intersections connecting to them, but we need to look at our own, in our own backyard. So this is Pine Hills Road between Silver Star and Pinton Way. So what you can see on the first slide, this is what we call a heat map. Every dot represents a crash for a different mode. Now, when you can see the congregation of the dots, it might be a signal, or that might be perhaps a mid-block. So that is an indication that we have a problem and that we should be addressing those. Then you have in the middle portion in there the total number of crashes, but then we broke it down in terms of number of fatalities and numbers of serious injuries, and then we go to the extent about the mode: vehicle, bicycle, pedestrian, motorcycles, and we have the crashes by year. Also, the report indicated what are some of the potential countermeasures. So it's not that we are flying blind and we don't know. Somebody that reads the report and say, okay, I would like to explore more some of these countermeasures. So what you have in here, before I go to the next slide, this is part of the Vision Zero report. There's 24 corridors in here. We went ahead. The way that we have this broken down is by district, but also on the left-hand column, we gave our first recommendation in terms of the priority. Now, the goal is not to go from number 1, number 2, number 3, but hopefully we can be equitable if we can and take a look at districts and see what are the needs within each district. So what you see in here, so you have the total number of crashes, you have the fatalities and serious injuries, then the two numbers to the right, and that's where the dollar signs are, and maybe where you will be very interested in terms of do we have enough money or not. I said there's not enough money in my wallet. I wish that I had all the many thousands or millions of dollars that it will take. So anyhow, so we have two numbers. One is the planning level, just based on our analysis, but the number to the right is based on using the formula that we used when Mayor Demings went the first time for the sales tax. So that formula was used. So if you look at the second page, if we were to do everything that it is proposing here with the complete streets, we're talking about $250 million. You know, billion with a B, and that is crazy, but certainly money is very needed with this. And I will tell you a little bit more about what we are doing and what Mayor Demings have been doing successfully for the last 2 years. And then the last is the plan recommendation that we have. So I want to go with the graph because it's very important. The core elements, the leadership and the commitment. As part of the TransMAC, you have a big role to play into this leadership and the commitment because you are looking at our budgets, you are looking at the projects. Also, you are asking the tough questions, and definitely you want those answers because it's critical the way that we look at things. And we know that sometimes the definition of craziness is doing the same thing and expecting different results. So definitely we want to be at the forefront and be as innovative as possible. Also, for the complete streets, it's not every person has the right to use our transportation system. Yes, I have a car, but I also walk, I ride a bike, you know, I take the transit. I must be able to use all of these modes of transportation. And last but not least, data is very good for the before and after and for the accountability. So for this, with the recommendations, some of these things we are changing or evolving them as we are getting the data. But the implementation timeline, we have the goal for 2040, but what are we doing on a year-to-year basis? And that's when we have our CIP budget, where that is a 5-year or 10-year, but that must be strategically chosen. Also the performance measures, and we're talking to Mohammed, that in some of these we can use AI, especially for the signals, and we can collect before data within 2-3 months. We can implement it and get the quick data, and we can say, yes, it worked, yes, it didn't work, what else can we do? But also we are looking at AI. Also tracking the progress. For the dashboard in the high injury, we are using the Metro plan, so they are in the process of revising this data. And so we will keep everybody informed when that happens. But the most important thing is that for us, we're going to go back to the commissioners every 5 years, and we want to show significant progress on a 5 years basis. So how do we communicate with everybody? And let me tell you, when I go to a meeting, I say, yes, I'm an engineer, and the public is expecting that me as an engineer, or Brian as a planner, or everybody from the county, that we solve all the issues, and I wish that I could do it alone. But I'm here to tell you that that is impossible. Because we also need the enforcement. You can have the best roadway with all of this, but if somebody decides to drive crazy or whatever happens, then we need to have some deterrence, and that is with the enforcement. So the sheriff office, they're an integral part of our Vision Zero. Also the education and the awareness, and there is, I know that Lauren, she has been talking, or she will be talking to you what the DOT is doing, but education is critical. The education is not only us as an agency, but also the community, the schools, teaching the kids early on what it's all about. We have to be in this together. And also the emergency response. I know that you have seen those speed cushions, that it has those slots. We work with the fire department. The reason that they indicated, let's consider something else, because if we have the speed humps, it means that both the front and the rear axle, they have to go over. But with the slots, we took the measurements of the front tires, the wheels, that they can go unimpeded. Yes, of course, the rear you have to go up a little bit, but that reduced the response time by almost 15 to 20 seconds per speed cushion. So when we are talking about life and death, and they are going to provide some of these services, yes, we need to be mindful and to provide the quick response. Strategy. I love strategy. And a strategy, it comes in different ways and forms, but now it came in the form of an umbrella. Believe it or not. So in the umbrella, and Mr. John Wise, he took time into this umbrella. I'm going to tell you, because the umbrella, what it's telling us is that the Vision Zero is going to be the umbrella that it covers all the transportation aspects of a project. When? From the planning, to the design, to the construction, to the maintenance and operations, and then going back again on the circle. So that is the Vision Zero. On the human scale, we have already programs like the sidewalk, the ADA, the pedestrians and the bicyclists. From the systems enhancements, lighting program, resurfacing, safety retrofits, and then from the planning, we have the corridor studies, we have the trail studies, we have the development review. Our developments, they must already account for the safety. And I cannot tell you that we are spending quite a bit of money, and some of them are the handling trail, handling growth in terms of 4-lane divided, but because it was designed for speed, now we are coming back and retrofitting, and those projects are costing the retrofit sometimes $4 or $5 million. And the question is, why? If you're going to develop something, why don't you develop it so when you said that the speed is 40 miles per hour or 35 miles per hour, that the roadway can provide the mechanisms with horizontal or vertical deflections, so then the public can travel in those speeds. Alefeya Trail, so I can name you Clarkona, Ocoee, all of these big corridors. We have to go back, but if we have to go back, we will. But let's not repeat the same mistakes. So the strategy is looking at the high crashes corridors, so you have your 24 roads that I have put in here, and they account for each one 4 roads or injury corridors for each one of the districts. The budget and the schedule for the projects, we have short, medium, and long term. So one of the things that in the traffic engineering division, in conjunction with transportation planning, is that we are trying, as soon as they have a study and they identify the short-term countermeasures, I'm ready to go. Tell me what I need to do. Okay, if I have the budget, then we just proceed. But when we're talking about medium to long term, it has to go through the budget process. And this is a painstaking process in terms of what we do. Our budget this year that it was approved, it was a zero increase budget. As a matter of fact, we reduced about close to $400,000 or $500,000 from the traffic engineering. It had to be done, so we have to live within our means. The other thing is providing the progress report, but making sure that the information is accurate. Mayor Demis, he was visionary, and I want to commend him because I know that when Lauren and our group, we were there the first time around with the sales tax, so we had the different tables. So we had the one for the safety, the bikes, and the pets, and you could see the line. I mean, unfortunately, some of the other tables didn't have the intensity, but we were just going back and forth, and so we understood. So Mayor Demis said, I heard my community. Okay, we did not get the 1 cent sales tax, but that doesn't mean that the safety and the problems went away. So it is on me, it is imperative that I do something. So Mayor Demis allocated $100 million, and he called the program the Accelerated Transportation Safety Program. We are beginning the 3rd year. So the money was allocated in 2 groups. One that it was for public works, $55 million, broken down, roadway lighting. Yeah, I do believe that was 25. No, it was okay. I have those. So roadway lighting, sidewalks, and safety improvements, and then $45 million for links. The challenge for links, it was the headways. Mr. Hoyos, the headways. People had to wait and wait and wait, and then there was no bus inside. So the headways was number 1. So that needed to increase the amount of buses in the service, but also the bus shelters. Because if you needed to wait, you needed to be protected from the inclement weather. So regarding the roadway lighting, which it is very ambitious, and we're moving aggressively. So lighting for roadways, 130 plus miles, and we coordinate with with Duke Energy and also with the Orlando Utilities Commission. Now, the other type of lighting is not only roadway, but let's talk about intersection lighting. Intersection lighting, you need to have higher intensities. And the problem, I love to work dark colors, but what I learned in my design class for intersection lighting is that you need to have a light pole in between the vehicle and the crosswalk. And that is because if this is beyond, and if you have dark color, you might not see the features of the person. You might see silhouettes, or you might see something dark. So then the pedestrian, it gets confused. So intersection lighting is a very cost-effective countermeasure, and we should implement a little bit more. Also, we talk about sidewalks and the curb ramps. So on the picture that you have on the top left, that is a 4-lane divided, and you see a sidewalk. As long as we have the right-of-way, also, we have met with some challenges in some communities that they say, that is part of my front yard, although that is counted right-of-way. So they have totally resisted, but we needed to have intense conversations just to say this is safety. If this sidewalk is not constructed, where do the pedestrians walk? On the roadway. Yes, so we have 26 miles about this. Also, we are trying to be sensitive, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, though we have the meandering sidewalk also that we are saving our environment and the trees. So we just want to make sure that also our sidewalks are part of the aesthetic improvements. And last but not least, we have our safety initiatives. That is 15 million divided over 3 years. But we're talking about the speed management, and that can be a roundabout, which actually in our division we're designing 3 roundabouts. Right now we are going to be having, and I don't know if this has been mentioned to you, a roundabout can cost you single lane maybe 1.5 to 2 million. Dual lane circulatory, it might be around 2.5. to 3.5, and if there's right-of-way, it takes a lot of money. So we engage, and maybe this was mentioned to you, but we have a modular runabout. Actually, they are prefabricated panels, and we have our test intersection. We are talking, already talked to the commissioner, we're going to be putting a flyer. This is in Wyndham, Lakes, and Roderick. So this runabout is going to cost us probably less than $500,000. Once the fabricator ships the panels, it can be installed within 2 weeks. Of course, we look at the crosswalks and all of these things. So there's more to come, but maybe that can be one of the elements that we can do as part of cost savings. We have the mid-block crosswalks. Also, we have the access management. That is a left turn that it was not in there. It was on Seidel and Bowery. That people that couldn't get into their neighborhoods, they needed to go to Seidel and Summer Lake Park, which you know that is very heavy traffic, and then they needed to make a U-turn. It was crazy. And last but not least, we have our raised pedestrian crosswalks for the traffic calming. And then we have some additional traffic calming countermeasures that we are implemented. Last but not least, we are developing a traffic calming toolbox. We are going on consent agenda on December 12th. In the past, we used to ask the community to contribute perhaps with the cost of 50%. But looking at that, if you come from a very underrepresented community, very financially challenged, then it means that there's no transportation equity because you cannot contribute to the solution. So the county has decided that we are going to be paying for that. Of course, we have limited funding. The commissioners, they have been working very generously with us, and they have contributed part of their discretionary funding. But I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk about Division Zero, and I will entertain any questions now or later.
Thank you so much, Humberto, for the comprehensive presentation. I know you've done it so many times. I'm sure you could probably do it in your sleep. So I appreciate you coming out. Before we go to members of the commission for questions or comments, I can just say I had the privilege of serving on the steering committee that helped develop the Vision Zero plan, and I can personally attest to the level of extensive expertise, dedication, and forethought that went into that plan. So I'm very confident and very comfortable that they did an amazing job. And I also have to thank Humberto for allowing me to be part of that committee, because I basically invited myself, and he allowed me to do it. So it was really something that was highly educational for me and a great experience. So thank you for that, Humberto. Okay, members of the commission, questions or comments? If you hit the button that has the 3 dots, that will let me know that you would like to speak. And then when it's your turn to speak, you'll hit the button that looks like the person talking, and your mic will go hot when it's red. So questions or comments from commission members? Yeah, Zach, I saw you press the button over there, but it didn't happen anything on my end. So you can go ahead and hit your talk button there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Humberto, for coming and sharing all that information. Definitely want to stress again that I'm nothing but deeply impressed with the county's ability to plan through the myriad issues that go into our transportation reality. And it really resonated with me when you were saying, you know, as an engineer, you can only do so much, and you know, you're depending on people to be responsible when they get in the car, and then the enforcement becomes a large issue. I have 2 questions, and one cuts into enforcement, and this has been one that I've brought up, I think, almost at every meeting, is that our roads are unsafe because there's no community presence on the roads. They don't seem, they work like roads instead of streets, right? These are essentially facilities for moving lots of vehicles, not pathways in communities. And one of the things that I've continued to try and bring up and entertain is, how can we create a system of enforcement that doesn't just rely on law enforcement, but is tasking the people that live in the communities with opportunities that are paid to create that enforcement, and then from that it's also generating revenue to help create safer streets in the neighborhood. Do you think that Vision Zero might be a reasonable way to explore solutions like that?
Well, to your first question regarding the roadways, so we know that in the last, maybe before the last 10 years, our transportation system, it was vehicle-centric. The roadways that were designed for cars, and there was little consideration for the rest, for the other modes of transportation. So I think that you use, do you have a scooter or?
Skateboard. I'm the skateboard guy.
Yes,
yeah.
the skateboard guy. Yes. So definitely there were no provisions for that 10 years, 15 years ago. So the term is complete streets, and this is where we are. Some of the roads that they were designed many years ago, I can tell you, Clarkona Ocoee, that roadway for lane divided. So in 2021, I think that it was March 11th or 21st. So I got a call, and they said, Humberto, was a big fatality. I mean, the news, the phone calls just started coming in. The mayor said, what are we going to do? Well, it happens that this mother was traveling with her sister. They had their kids in the back. They were making a left turn. At that time, that intersection, Gamer, it wasn't signalized. They were making a left turn to go to the Dollar General. The posted speed is 45 miles per hour. The car, and it was a young Hispanic, I mean, he must have been like 20, 21, married, had a kid. He was driving twice the speed limit. 45 miles per hour, twice the speed limit. I mean, this is like a freeway. Of course, it was a T-bone, 5 fatalities. And then, so here it comes. What are you going to do? And I say, okay, let me see. I need to pull all the stops. So we usually do mass arms. We say, well, we're going to do a concrete span post in there so it can be done faster. We're not going to have a designer. We will design it internally. We have engineers that we can do that, and then we will use our contractors. So by April 11th of 2022, the signal was in operations. The delay for almost 2 months, it was because of the utility coordination. So we did our part, but we cannot bring back those lives. So the key is that for some of these big arterial or collector corridors, the way that they were designed is an oversight on the other modes of transportation. So we need to go back and to retrofit them to be a complete street. Maybe we need to have multi-use trails. Maybe we need to perhaps do a roadway, a lane repurposing, like what we did on Rio Grande that we have, and then that can provide, so there are solutions. Now, in terms of the other question, whether Division Zero can be perhaps the stepping stone for this, some of these laws, I can tell you that some other states, they do have speed enforcement for the travel lanes. And then if somebody's going, you don't need to have the presence of the sheriff's office, but the legislature has not passed it in here. If that will pass, it will be a game changer because we don't have that many officers that they can be patrolling.
That's why I see it as more of a code enforcement. Rather, I see it as we're missing a layer of code, right? That says that communities should be able to self-police for safety in regards to certain issues. And the infraction doesn't have to be legal. It can simply be, it's a code enforcement issue and there's a fine attached to it. What I think the larger thing that I'm asking, right, is what I understand from Vision Zero is it's a systems-based approach. It's analyzing the systems, determining what are the outcomes, and isolating these pain points where the intended outcome is not the designed outcome, right? And when I look at enforcement, we do not have an effective enforcement system. And not to at all criticize our police or our sheriff's department, because they're tasked with essentially keeping the road safe and enforcing. They can only do that when they have a car or an officer or a deputy assigned to a specific location. Whereas citizens who live in an area, they're there all the time. They're using all kinds of facilities where they live. And I think what's missing is the fact that we do not have any way for someone who lives in a neighborhood to go, you're coming through my neighborhood all the time looking at your phone, and I see you go by and you break all kinds of laws on the road, and then you act like you're entitled to be able to use your phone in the car, and we have no recourse as citizens. This is our place where you're coming. can't Vision Zero provide some of those code like updates or code expansions that would say, hey, there are people who can enforce a code about safety on our roads that's not legal, it's just about community safety?
Yeah, what I suggest, definitely, I don't have the answer to that question, but that is a very good question. I think that we should pursue the answers. I think that talking with the commissioners, talking with our legal department, and also because that is like Big Brother is pushing me, and we know that sometimes how we are, that we want to have our liberties and the things. But I think that if we can engage the conversation now and just discuss it, if we don't do anything or we don't initiate the conversation, then definitely we're not going to be bringing that point forth. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Zach. I had a question. We talked about funding as always, right? We know that's one of the biggest issues we have. We're trying to make kind of the improvements we want to do here. Now, on this paper here, we have all the high injury network corridors,
Yes.
and we referenced one in the presentation there for Pine Hills Road.
Yes.
And if I recommend to my commission members or members of the public, if you haven't gone and looked at the Vision Zero plan, every single one of these segments has very detailed analysis of what the issues are there, but also the specific countermeasures that would be helpful to that area. And they're in all of our districts. I would highly recommend taking a look at the Vision Zero plan and seeing what you have in your district and what kind of things would be beneficial for your area. It's really detailed and really well done. My question is, though, we talked about the 5-year, you mentioned the 5-year capital improvement plan. Do we have any in our current 5-year capital improvement plan any of these corridors in the Vision Zero plan currently in the CIP?
Our plan is a very laborious process that we have. So the Vision Zero was just adopted last year. So part of this that we are here today, and I believe that that's why the TransMAC committee it was created. It was not only to take a look at those things. I know that I have talked to Ms. Lauren Torres extensively in terms of this, and one of the ideas, because the funding is not is limited, is how can we incorporate some of these things? And this is all part of the discussions, and I will be happy also to participate as much as we can. What we know is this, that some of our capacity projects, unfortunately, the cost it has doubled and it has tripled. So the budget that it was allocated for many projects, now perhaps we can complete maybe one, maybe two. So what does that do is that not only that it is a challenge for all of us, but the money not being available. So what do? So the Vision Zero, the goal is that we have short and mid-term improvements, and because they don't cost as much, then maybe there is an opportunity to look at these corridors, to look at the safety countermeasures, and to say, as part of this plan, now all of these corridors are going to be part of the CIP. Let's start perhaps with the short-term improvements. What I can tell you is that we did submit an application for the Safe Street for All grant. This is round 3. So as part of that application, we needed to have a Vision Zero. We submitted the 24 corridors. What we were asking from the federal government, it was, I guess, open last night. So maybe we have not gotten any confirmation. So they have been closed for what, 41 days?
Who's counting them, Bert,
yeah. Who is counting? So
only us employees that had you were furloughed for a month and a half.
So we have not gotten a confirmation. But what we were asking, we said, we're going to go for the max. So we were asking for $25 million as a grant with a 20% match. That is $6 million and a quarter. The county is going to be putting forth the match, but we are looking within the means, public works, how we can leverage all of these things. But it's very hard to leverage $250 million, 250 million. So we know that we can do as much. But I know that Ms. Torres and with Brian Sanders and all of these things, there is an opportunity for a conversation, and maybe this can be also added and be part of the CIP.
So what I think I heard in that is that no, that these are not currently part of the 5-year CIP.
Not yet.
Okay. How about the long term transportation plan, which I believe covers 25 years, right? If I'm right, is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Do we have any of these Vision Zero projects as part of the long range transportation plan?
We might have some elements, but not specifically what Mr. Sanders.
Yeah, Brian, if you come to these meetings, we're going to get you up here eventually. So
That's fine. Brian Sanders, for the record, Transportation Planning Manager. As Humberto said, the Vision Zero plan came out very recently. Orange County's a big organization, and it takes time to turn the ship towards the target sometimes. Coincidentally, some of the projects, are on there, like Hiawassee Road, for example. All right, we're doing the study now. It just so happens that, we hit the target on that one, and perhaps others. So I think the point is that Public Works is turning the ship towards that target now and trying to focus as much of our resources as possible in that direction. Of course, we get requests from all over the county that pull us away from that in many, many instances, and we're trying to remain focused on that while still covering all of the other issues in different parts of the county.
So, Brian, I think this is a question for you that I had. So, say we want to put these Vision Zero project into our 5-year CIP, or long range transportation plan. I know that we have like countermeasures as part of these corridors that are part of the Vision Zero plan, but if we put them into the plan, like Hiawassee Road is an example that you mentioned, do we have to do like those full studies, those roadway conceptual analysis as a starting point, or have we already started with the Vision Zero plan? Is that already a good first step, or do we have to take it to the next level of study as part of that analysis?
Well, you need to be strategic with the funds that you have. If you have just enough to look at a few of the intersections within those corridors, it's worthwhile, right? You get some return on those investments. The big corridor projects are very expensive and very time-consuming. There's public engagement efforts that come into play, a lot of data collection, a lot of analysis. But you can tackle that also individually with intersection improvements. A lot of the issues happen there. We have access to Signal 4 analytics, which kind of points the mid-block issues. So you can tackle it piecemeal, but it's important to utilize the available funds that you have strategically.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments from additional? Pat, go ahead.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you.
Hit your button there on the right. There you go.
Okay. What's the number one factor that contributes to fatalities in the county more than anything else?
It is speed.
Speed. Okay. Then why not focus on that? In Australia, they have cameras on all the interstates. They don't have a lot of bad accidents. If you speed, you get a ticket in the mail, just like when they put out right turn cameras. If you go up and it says there's a camera in effect. Why don't we do that? What's the next factor that contributes beyond speed?
Yeah, my understanding is that based on the legislation, we have the red light running cameras for the intersections, but then when we have for mid-blocks, that it has to be an action that it has to come from Tallahassee, and we would love to have that option because I think that can be self-policing. That's why we are going for the school zones automated speed enforcement that it has been approved by the ordinance. So we're limited in terms of what we can do. But
I understand. What's the second factor that I assume speed is by far?
Okay, speed is by far.
What's the second one?
Okay, from an engineering perspective, we talk about designs. Before, I went to a meeting in Horizons West, Winter Garden, Vineland, and Lackland that we had put an intersection. So I was going home from the meeting. So I'm sitting at the intersection, and then my car, it is slanted. And I said, why? Okay, why? Because that is a curve. So if you want to have a speed, you're going to be having that embankment. So the designs that we have used in the past, they are for speed. So part of that is that we're going from a normative safety approach in the designs to substantive. So our designs, they have to be embedded or be included that we can control. For instance, a runabout can go ahead, and if you continue driving at the same speed approaching that intersection, you're going to be hitting the circle island.
I'm
So
just
part of that
interested
is
in the
design.
causes, and I understand it.
Yeah.
Now, in the chart for the top 20 areas and nations in the country, those are basically all southern cities.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to know, what is that? Is it because there's more tourists in the southern cities? Is it because they have a higher incident of elderly folks?
Yeah.
And what do you think is the cause for that?
Yeah.
Because once you find out a cause, you can start
Yeah.
dealing with things.
Yes, and that is a very great observation. I think that all the points that you mentioned, that they include, because the elderly people, like the reaction. I know that I went to Panama in Central America, and I was telling my dad, I said, I want to drive. He said, Humberto, you don't know how to drive in Panama City. You have not been here for the longest time. And then he said, I have lived here. But I said, Dad, but you are 25 years older than me, and I have better reaction. So I think that the thing is that a lot of the people, they come and they live in Florida, sometimes because of the sheer number, and as you said, and many people driving. So part of that is that we must have a system that accounts for all drivers, for all ages. The reaction time is very critical. Let's not do it just for the young people, but also for the elderly. So we include
I understand
everything.
everything contributes to everything in this
Yeah,
world.
correct.
And you can't deal with everything
No,
in this
yeah.
world. You've got to deal with certain specific reasons and see how it dealt with.
Yeah.
But I was just concerned about that, and I don't know whether because Orange County has 1 million some citizens, and then we get 75 million people, unlike Nashville. You know, it's a big
It is a big factor, and if you look, sometimes if the signs that we have, they don't convey a symbol. If you have a symbol, it doesn't matter what language you are, but if we have, a left turn lane allow, if you're not proficient in English and you are coming here, and if you cannot read it or comprehend that, then it is a factor, as it has been across the nation. So many people riding the heavy trucks, and unfortunately, they don't understand.
Well, I understand. Money is not only the root of all evil, but it's also a solution to everything. And what I'm thinking is, because we have so many tourists, there's been an issue raised lately about increasing the tourist tax and deal with roadways that way if you need some money, and hopefully they'll be able to deal with it like that.
Yeah, I do believe that is one of the proposals. The other one, it was the sales tax that Mayor Demis was talking about. The 75 million people that they come in here, they will be contributing to some of this. So there's more implications, and I don't pretend to be an expert in all of these things, but definitely if the people that come and visit and they can contribute and support to have a safe transportation system, I think that is valid, and let's explore all the options.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could chime in on that point, and Humberto, correct me if you disagree with that, as to why those are all southern cities and Sunbelt cities that are on this list. Those are all cities that grew up that were built with the cars as the main focus of the transportation system. If you look at some of our oldest cities in America, roads were built for different modes of transportation. They were built for people walking. They would be built for horses and carriages. They were built for streetcars. Down here in the Sun Belt, our cities all grew around cars as the main focus of the transportation system. So, in my opinion, from what I've read, that is a main contributing factor as to why those southern cities are so high on those lists. Humberto, would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, and also the way that we do our development, because usually if you work at Publix in Horizons West with that salary, my expectations is that that person cannot buy a home in Horizons West, so that person needs to take the public transportation system. So just the fact that within the development we cannot integrate all people's living and earning their money, because if we design it for everybody to be able to walk and to bike, and we have this housing availability, that would be perfect, because more people will walk, more people will do a lot of things. But right now, it's these big developments, it's suburban communities, and we need to have a car.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest goals of the Vision Zero plan is building those roads for everyone, right? Instead of where our main focus previously was building roads for people and vehicles, now we're trying to build roads, for everyone, for people and vehicles, but also people who are using transit, using biking, walking, scooter, skateboarding. I will never forget skateboarding now on that list, Zach, because of you.
Thank you.
So what I will leave you with this question, and I don't know if you have the answer. So the question is, as we are trying to deal with complete streets, we have two approaches. One is we are going to concentrate on building these new roads to the complete street, but there are new roads and that is going to take time and we should do it. Or are we going to be focusing on retrofitting these existing roads where people live in there? So what is the benefit to cost ratio and what can we do immediately? And sometimes the retrofitting to service the people that they are facing these problems, perhaps it's a more immediate and pressing need, but what do we do? But perhaps that is the most expensive need. So there is a balancing that we all will have to contemplate and discuss it and then make the best decision available.
Any other questions or comments from members of the commission?
Yeah, I did just want to, I just did want to, when you asked earlier, Patrick, what's the second thing? I mean, I'm not the expert, but I've definitely seen a lot of statistics that say distracted driving is a big factor here. And, that just goes back to the same point that I make all the time that I don't have to make again, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and that is personal responsibility, correct?
Yeah, thank you, Humberto. Great presentation. I would like to attest here in front of the Commissioner Michael Scott that I, as a links provider, transit operator, I save one life per day when I do the links 42, number 8 in International Drive. Humberto, it's pretty bad out there. People just don't stop. And myself as an operator, I actually have to stop the bus and actually get my hand out and tell people, stop. And the issue that I have, Commissioner, is that I feel that there has to be a deeper conversation with the sheriff, because I see them out there perhaps looking for drug offenders, maybe a situation with ICE. I just don't see them giving tickets to people who are speeding in iDrive, Oak Ridge Road, OBT, especially in times where there's a lot of people out there. I just don't see it. And I'm the one stopping there. And the British, who bring a lot of tourism dollars to our area, they're looking at me and they're actually giving me thanks. And I think this should be addressed. We need more policing in our streets for those offenders. Thank you, Commissioner.
Jose, thank you for the awareness. One of the challenges with our local law enforcement when it comes to speed enforcement, it's usually one unit instead of several. And so you have to kind of schedule, hey, we have this issue. And so you have all the commissioners at the county level, maybe all the city commissioners at whatever city level, reaching out to one traffic enforcement unit. And in that enforcement, it's like, hey, can you go here? Can you go there? So that's the challenge. More globally, the sheriff is short, maybe about 200 or so deputies. And so trying to staff those positions while also competing with other law enforcement agencies who are offering $10,000, $20,000, and $25,000 bonuses. So that is really difficult to put a handle on. Mr. Christensen, you talked about speed enforcement, specifically automated and photo enforcement. It's not popular with anyone. When we talked about adding additional cameras and I started sharing it in different community meetings, people were against it. When I said it was in the school zone, they were okay with it then. And so the biggest part of what you guys are charged with, at least in my perspective, in helping us doing is finding those partnerships, because we can have the funding, we can have the laws and things, but if we don't have the buy-in from any given community or any given number of business organizations, it doesn't go anywhere, or it doesn't go anywhere at the pace that we want it to. Years ago, I think it was 2019 when we capped this was before my time, but the 125 to go to Universal. They haven't gotten it yet, but that project has swelled a little bit over $300 million. But by then, it was unheard of. Why are we giving the money to a private company? But now Kirkman Road is expanded. It looks nice. Traffic is flowing. We have buses. And so it's really, one, finding those partnerships, but looking at those innovative ways. But the other piece is a lot of what Alberto said is like we have challenges that we have to navigate when it comes to Tallahassee. And they may put things that we can work with and some things that we can't. Just this district alone, if you've driven here before it got dark, you have a project that's happening right now on Pine Hills Road. And it started as a safety project, right? And so we had some mid-block crossing. We put some barriers in because this region is number 18, am I right? 18 for deaths and fatalities and serious injuries in the entire country. And so we did that. But then folks started complaining, oh, this looks ugly. It looks like a jail. So then I talked with them, and now you see some palm trees and some more aesthetics. But again, we had a solution, and the community didn't like the solution. They beat me up for it. Oh, since you came in the office, they didn't know. And then we got septic to sewer. And so they feel like it's a never-ending project. Then you fast forward on another part of the district, Rio Grande went from 4 lanes to 2, 1 in each direction on a bike lane. Well, why did you do that? Not knowing it took years to get to this point. And so one of the challenges is educating the folks on what it is that we need, but more importantly, why we need it and the impact to them. And sometimes they miss that piece of it. So then when it does come to fruition, because we have the money and have everything that we need, they're frustrated because it's not what they want or it's not presented in the way that they thought it would take shape. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we need y'all to continue these meetings that are complex and challenging, but also to find those partners that we may not be aware of. It may be a wealthy individual, it may be one company or a combination of companies, because we can pull state and federal funding, but I think with transportation there's always going to be a gap. But also with transportation, there's always going to be opportunities for innovation, and that's where we find those little things that we're doing in different countries, different cities, different states. But what you're doing here is really kind of the pioneers for what transportation can be, not just in our county, but also in our state. You know, Zach bringing up skateboarding. Everybody gets everywhere different ways. So y'all got a long road ahead, but I think that we've already shown as a county that we're willing to make some adjustments. We just need you guys to figure out, one, how we get there, who are our partners, and most importantly, where's the extra money at that we don't know about?
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you.
I appreciate you. And thank you all for your service. This is Eric's 3rd or 4th volunteer board. I mean, he pops up on a lot. And I try to say this to every board that I get in front of. You don't know how much time you have here, right? You spent probably a full day working or time with your family, and you are spending another 2-3 hours here to have a discussion about what impacts you, but also what impacts your neighbors. You could be anywhere, but you're giving of your time, you'll never get it back. You'll never get it back. And so to the extent that you put things on hold or rearrange things and thought that this was important for you to sacrifice time away from the people that you love and care about, I'm saying thank you. Because it's not fun, it's not easy, and you're not getting paid to do it. But you're making a sacrifice for what will be a long-term benefit the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. So thank you for giving up your time. I sincerely appreciate it, because I know it's hard, I know it's challenging, and then this is just the work in the seat. I'm sure you get emails and things you got to read and prepare and stuff like that. So thank you for all of you just for stepping up, for volunteering for us and for your neighbors. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions for Humberto before we let him go? If not, we can also, if you have questions for the Commissioner, we can invite Commissioner Scott back up to the podium if you have questions or comments for him. But can we let Humberto go? Do we have anything else for Humberto?
Let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
Humberto,
Yes. Crazy.
I know there's a lot of different issues floating around. If Lynx received more money in order to increase the headway to the buses, do you think that would have a positive effect on the issue of fatalities and other injuries to the pedestrian and the other public?
Yeah, I think that I believe in the transit system. Number one, because there are several type of transit programs. So we have the regular bus links, that we have the routes, and that is based on the population that they have it. So I do believe that we should have a strategic routes. When I was working in Jacksonville, we were working with the JTA, was working for Eisman and Russo. One of the things that we did in there before was that we survey over 2,500 bus stops, and that was the data to create an optimization route. So I do believe that Links also, they have done that. So you have an optimization route to serve the community, but also the location of the bus stops. Sometimes where people cross, you might have a bus stop, but people are going to be crossing behind or below. So whatever systems that we have, just to make sure that it is integrated with the walking, the origin and the destination, so that is safe and having that. So that is number one. But the other thing that in Jacksonville that they were doing is the bus rapid transit system. So the bus rapid transit system, that is a mode shift, that you can have people that they are going to specific destinations and they can go faster because you don't stop at every location, and then you can provide that service. So yes, I do think that if we have the transit and we improve it, what I don't know, and this is just for the Links staff to talk about what is their plan that they have, but I do believe that transit, it has a component that we can improve safety.
Any other questions or comments from Humberto? Go ahead, Rod.
Yes,
Ms.
thank you
Spencer.
very much. Great presentation, and I really appreciate the job that everyone does, not only the people in back, but certainly the ladies that get the information to us in advance so we have a chance to look at it and come in rather than just walking into it. I was one of the negative statistics. I volunteered to fall so I could become a negative statistic for you, but I want to cover a couple things while we have it. Falls are the leading cause of traumatic brain injuries. Falls are the leading cause of accidental deaths. 60% of all falls are on level ground. My fall was on level ground. 70% of falls occur in your own property. 2/3 of those in your own home. In your own home, throw rugs, lack of lighting, and there should be nothing below knee level in a walking path in a home, and that's where all these falls occur. And for older people like me, seniors, every 11 seconds, a senior is treated in the ER for a fall. Every 19 minutes, a senior dies because of that fall. If a senior falls and breaks a hip, the average life expectancy is 6 to 12 months. And 40% of all nursing home and assisted living admissions are the direct result of a fall. The importance of people reporting using 311 if there's a raised section of sidewalk or broken like I tripped on. Take a picture of it,
Yes.
report it to 311, get in front of it so we don't have someone that winds up dying or having a fall. But again, thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to be here with you this evening.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Humberto, thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much.
you.
Excellent job as always. I appreciate you coming out. So, Commissioner.
I just wanted to make a quick note
Absolutely.
About ATSP and Metro Plan. So Metro Plan, we had a Metro Plan meeting this week, and two things that were notable to me is that one of the Osceola County Commissioners talked about, hey, I have a project. It's been on the drawing board of sorts for 20 years. What's going on? How come all these other projects are getting moved above mine? The funding's there. What's happening? You can't find the funding. And while he was saying that, you had a Seminole County Commissioner, hey, we've been waiting 30 years for our project and it just got done. And so like it goes to those political priorities. But specifically to links, the ATSP is, or not is, but can be flexible. Each one of the commissioners were asked and engaged what they want to see in their district relative to those funds. And so for me, I asked for increased pickup frequency as opposed to bus shelters because I felt like if someone had the choice, they'd want to get there quicker than being more comfortable standing in the sun. Likewise, when I was 15, I caught 37 to Winn-Dixie. That was my first job. I wouldn't have been able to get to that job if I didn't have public transportation. And then when I turned 16, Islands of Adventure opened, and I caught that same bus all the way to Islands of Adventure. And that was a small example of a public-private partnership because Universal had a bus stop on their property in their employee parking lot before they put a parking garage back there. And so it's little things like that. You see stuff, you experience things. He talked about, trips and falls, but your elected representation, but also y'all are the quick change. Someone's going to show you something or you're going to see something. Someone's going to tell us something, we're going to see something, and that's how we start to shape our policy and our approach and the cadence and how we do things. Because otherwise, these gentlemen, although they they are well-intentioned and well-educated, looking at models and different things, sometimes that secret sauce is the conversations you have, the observations you make, or the engagements that we have as a community. And so continue to share that. And I think while we can't move as fast as we want with the larger projects, we can certainly make adjustments on the smaller ones based on the input that you guys get in this process and out in the community. But yeah, again, thank you. Just wanted to share those 2 points.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Anyone have any questions or comments for the Commissioner? Yeah, I mean, public comment is we should reserve that for public comment, but
I have a question.
yeah, sure.
It probably pertains to all of you, and my question is there anything built into any of these plans that deals with educating the public? Because we can talk about all the things that are wrong with the road and the cracks in the sidewalk, and to speak, and I agree with all of that, but the other part of it is that, Pine Hills Road is an example, the bicycle rack thingies going up the center. I see people climbing over them, walking around them. How does a driver navigate people that are misbehaving by jaywalking and doing that? So I'm asking, is there anything in there to educate the public so that we can attack all of this at the same time?
So there is always a public education campaign in anything that's traffic related. I think with the school zone speed enforcement, they will get a warning, I believe, at first, something before they get a ticket. So there's always an aspect of that, but your education is well-intentioned on social media or U.S. mail, but a lot of it's social media and through community meetings, is only good as the engagement of the individuals that kind of are the keepers of the information. Me, I knock doors, and I go to every community meeting. Right now I have my staff at 2 other meetings here tonight. And so in the community, and we're getting updates from Public Works, from Metro Plan, from they're sharing things with us so that we can push out, because they know you can post something on social media, but it may not meet this particular community association. It's a bunch of seniors that don't get online. And so from an education piece, it is community specific. And even more granular than that, it's neighborhood specific, because they have to be seeking the information and you have to deliver it in a way that makes sense for them. Like I'll take the Haitian community example. Some of the older Haitians may listen to things on the radio. Some of the younger folks may want to see things on social media. So it's not a one size fits all, but it's very much get the information and figure out all the avenues. But then if we see it's not being adopted or not being receptive, then we go back to them and say, hey, can you spend more money or try different approaches? So it's a fluid thing. It's not any one size fits all. Zach, you had a question.
I just wanted to thank you for coming out here and for appointing me to the commission. I think, I'm probably not the first skateboarder appointed to a commission in the county. I would be surprised, because this is a very progressive and open-minded and forward-thinking place. But on a more immediate personal level, this Orange County is a place where I've been able to access adult opportunities that were not available to me elsewhere, and opportunities to not grow up as a person, but to be engaged in important things in the community. And I just want to be able to say in front of everyone that you're a person who is an elected official, but I think before that you're such a strong example of what's possible here. So thank you.
And sorry I was late. I was at an art contest at the juvenile courthouse, so I had to came all the way over there, and so I would have got here sooner.
No, we're just thankful you could join us here, Commissioner. Thank you so much for being here. Any other questions or comments for the Commissioner? Okay, Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so we're going to proceed into our agenda next. So we're talking a lot about District 6 here. Let's hear about what we're doing in District 6 right now to make your transportation system better. And Lauren Torres from the county is going to come and tell us exactly what is going on in District 6 right now. So,
Lauren!
The crowd goes wild. No one ever cheers for me when I start talking like that, Lauren. So, story of my life, Commissioner,
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go over some of the projects that have been either completed or started just in fiscal year 24-25, which ended October 1st of this year. So just an overview of the projects, the studies that we're working on. roadway projects, sidewalk projects, ADA improvements, traffic signal, and intersection improvements, stormwater improvements, roadway lighting, and a small conversation about a little bit of the transit on I-Drive. So this is just an overall map of the projects. It kind of gives you a good representation of all the different types of work we've been doing in District 6. So for our studies, we have a safety study on Hiawassee Road. This study is between Balboa Drive and Silver Star. It's focusing on pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users. So we've been having a lot of conversations tonight about how we're shifting our goals and what we're looking at when it comes to safety and roadway design. So this is a great example of that. This study is about 53% complete and should be completed by the fall of next year. This is another study, again, a safety and access management study on Conroy Windermere Road from Hidden Beach to Apopka Vineland Road. The goals of this project are to identify, evaluate, and recommend operational improvements to reduce delay and improve the safety along the corridor for all users. This study is about 25% complete, and it should be completed by next summer. We've also been talking a lot about these school zone speed enforcement cameras. So by Florida statute, we had to do studies for all the schools that we were going to install these cameras in. So we went out and talked to the people that are actually doing that enforcement, law enforcement. We talked to the school crossing guards, and we talked to OCPS. And this is where these schools came from. So in District 6, there are 2 schools that we plan on installing those cameras in for next school year. They're Oak Hill Elementary and Palmetto Elementary. So this is just the beginning. The county plans on installing more wherever they're valuable to be installed. So we'll talk a little bit about roadway projects. So we've got the I-Drive pedestrian overpass. So this is an overpass that's going to be serving the 4 corners of the I-Drive and Sand Lake Road intersection. Not only is this overpass going to be great for pedestrians, but it's also going to be surrounding sidewalk improvements, ADA improvements, and lighting. So currently we're in the scope development for the design of this. So it's going to be going out to a request for proposal soon to start the design on this particular project. We have Trade Show Boulevard. This is a lane widening from 2 lanes to 4 lanes divided. But it's going to include transit lanes, truck staging lane, and a 10-foot wide shared use path. The design of this project is at 90%. And we've also been talking about Pine Hill. So the Pine Hills Pedestrian Safety Project phases 2 and 3 are moving forward. Right now, phase 2 is a raised median from State Road 50 to Figwood Lane, and the construction for this project is at 80%. For phase 3, we have a 4-lane section with median and a 12-foot wide trail from Belco Drive to Bonnie Bray Circle. And the construction notice to proceed was just released on the beginning of this month, just last week. So it's going to also include pedestrian safety, signals, and ADA upgrades. The Kirkman Road extension, that's 6-lane road alignment from Universal to Sand Lake. Construction is almost 100% complete, and some of those features include sidewalks and transit lanes. The Oak Ridge Road Pedestrian Safety Project, since we talked about this one as well, I believe. So this is a pedestrian safety project from Millennia Boulevard to OBT. It includes 8 to 10-foot sidewalks, raised medians, mid-block crossings, and rapid rectangular flashing beacons. This construction was completed earlier this year. Now we'll talk a little bit about sidewalk projects. So we've broken them out into projects that they both include capital improvement funds and also the Mayor's Accelerated Transportation Safety Program. So in design, we have Jackson Street, Ortman Drive, Robinson Street, Washington Street, Jefferson Street, and Link Avenue. In construction, we currently have 37th Street and Golf Club Parkway, and we're currently obtaining the right-of-way for a sidewalk on Wakula Way. So for our ADA improvements, as I've discussed with the members before, these improvements can be either just at intersections, or it could also be entire corridors or whole neighborhood, depending on the need. And these are all the ADA improvements we've completed this fiscal year. For traffic signal and intersection improvements, Old Winter Garden Road and North Ivy Lane is at 50% construction. Texas Avenue and Americana is at 90% construction. West Oak Ridge Road and Double Eagle Drive is at 30% design. And Old Winter Garden Road at Powers Drive is at 30% design. So a few stormwater improvements. The Orlo Vista flood mitigation project, which included excavation, erosion control, and the replacement of a pump station, was completed this fiscal year. The Bonnie Brook Pump Station, which is a replacement for a pump station, was also completed this fiscal year, or last fiscal year, excuse me. We'll discuss roadway lighting. So these are the roadway lighting that has been completed in fiscal year 24-25, what's currently in construction, and also what's currently in design. Now, like I said, just a small discussion about transit on iDrive. So just recently, October actually, Orange County provided an additional $2 million in funding for fixed operating costs to increase bus service for these routes specifically serving the iDrive area. The amount that was budgeted for links in fiscal year 24-25 was approximately $89 million, which is about a 14.2% increase from the previous year. In this year, the amount approved by the Board of County Commissioners was $101.9 million, another 14.5% increase for links. So Public Works has had about 36 projects in District 6 for fiscal year 24-25. Most were completed, while some are still underway. These efforts represent over $36 million invested directly in the community. It does not include any of the funding or additional funding I mentioned for links. Any questions?
Thank you, Lauren. We'll go to questions and comments from the commission. One comment for me is that Brian mentioned, we were talking earlier about Orange County being a large ship, and sometimes it takes some time to change the direction of that ship. But seeing those transportation studies on Hiawassee Road and Conroy-Windermere Road being safety studies, I think is a good example of how we are trying to turn that ship. So I think that's a great start, and I'm looking forward to see the outcome of those studies. But it's very encouraging to me. Any questions or comments from other commission members? Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question about cameras in school zones. If someone exceeds the speed limit, what happens?
Well, everything's based on the Florida statute, so I've got some information here.
Those guys in Tallahassee again?
Yeah.
I understand.
So the school zone automated speed enforcement devices can only be active in a reduced speed school zone during the following period. So if the violation exceeds 10 miles per hour over the school zone speed limit, which occurs within 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after the start of a regularly scheduled school session.
I just need to know what happens when the guy's a bad guy and violates all the statutory provisions.
Well, I believe for the rollout, I believe we're going to do warnings first, right? So if they go over the speed limit during these specific times, they'll get their warning first. And then after a short period, after a time of warning, then they'll start receiving tickets of $100 per violation.
Does the county control whether or not to give them a citation or not?
Not the county. So we're working with the sheriff's office on that. So the sheriff's office are the ones that have to evaluate the camera and evaluate the violation on the video. And then they're the ones that make the assessment as to whether there is a violation or not, and they provide the ticket.
So if there's a violation, who gets to determine whether it's a warning ticket or a citation?
Again, I think...
Sorry.
So I think the warning ticket will only be for a certain period of time at the beginning of the program. So this is a rollout of this initial program. How long that period of time is, Humberto, I don't know if you might know. Okay, so the first 30 days is when they get the warnings.
I'm a great advocate. If you get a ticket, you're not going to do it again.
Agreed.
Okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
I just got a context for you. So those two, for your benefit.
Commissioner, do you want to come to the mic so we all have the ability here, your wisdom and.
So she went over those projects, and I just talked about this. So they're perfect examples. Hidden Beach, literally, they have an HOA. We put a traffic light there. Now they're not happy with the traffic light because they have to wait too long. So now they want a flashing yellow. and they are on me about that. And then
Well, you knew that when you got elected.
Oak Ridge Road, right in Windy Ridge, you have John Young going westbound. They are not happy about that because they can't go through the medians, and so that has been a topic of concern at least for the last year. They're not happy about that. Likewise, a builder who's building more apartments saying, hey, I want a light and I want it now. And so trying to please everybody right now, it's managing people's priorities based on what our priorities are. And so we're working with them right now, the Homeowners Association, and then also with the builder because it's going to have impact in traffic. But those are perfect examples of what I was trying to illustrate to you later, is we may have a plan, and then we put this plan in place, and within weeks, we have to try to make adjustments, but also we need time and data, which takes months and sometimes years. And so that's where the disconnect comes when we start to plan these different projects in different areas. So I just wanted to, I seen that. I literally was just with them last week to 9:30 at night about that particular issue for Hidden Beach. So I just wanted to share that context for you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I mean, I know I've seen time and time again, everyone loves safety until it comes at the expense of their own convenience, and then safety is not so important anymore. Unfortunately, that's the kind of the reality that we're dealing with. But, you know, as advocates and as elected officials, we can do our best to try to, you know, educate the public about why these things are so important. But to be honest with you, at the end of the day, if they don't, sometimes they just need to be done because it's for the betterment of the entire community as a whole. So we can do our best, but you know, it's difficult. It's a difficult conversation.
I think that's one of the places where education is perhaps or the lack of education is perhaps the most perceptible, because this is not a slight to anyone, but so many average citizens go, oh, I see what the problem is. I know how to fix it. Why don't you just do that? Right? And then
you
just do that is that, well, we're waiting, right? We've been waiting 5, 10, 15, 20 years on the just do that. Come on in, the water's warm, right?
Yeah, it's like we want a road safer, but not like that, you know, exactly. So it's challenging. Any other questions or comments for Lauren? Okay. Lauren, thank you so much for that update.
All right, thank you.
A lot of good things coming to District 6.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to proceed to the last part of our agenda for the evening, which is our open comment period for our members. Anyone have any comments? I have a couple things, but I'll go to the commission first to see if anyone has any thoughts they'd like to share. Pat, you're up.
I was wondering whether this commission is going to take any position one way or the other on increasing the bed tax that's been going around a little bit.
Yeah, so we did have, during one of our work sessions, it was a work session, yeah, it was one of our work sessions, we did have a presentation on the proposed transportation, the Tourism Improvement Transportation Act. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but essentially a new version of TDT that would go specific towards transportation that's being proposed by a local resident, local consultant, and the CEO of Harris Rosen. Are we going to take a position? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I think we would need more information. At that time, there was no legislative language at that point. It hasn't even been officially proposed, to my knowledge, in the legislature. But it's only something I would be interested in trying to find that additional funding revenue and using the tax dollars that come in here from the tourism industry to do that, while also leaving in place their existing tax structure under TDT. I'm not sure we have enough information as a commission to make that determination, but I would love to talk about it more. Go ahead.
Well, I think we ought to think about that. I mean, it's a start. They've been trying to do that now for as many years as you're old, which means you're a young guy, right? Or an older guy? But I think we ought to get some indication of what it's all about and maybe give some general consensus that this would be a good thing to have the tourists contribute some additional money, at least in that district out there that they need so badly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more conversation, more information on that. Other thoughts from commission members?
To that point, I would suggest we reach out to ARDA in the area to see what their leverage of support is for the bill. And not just the Rosen hotels, but see if additional hospitality companies have come on board, support it at the state legislative level?
Yeah, I know at the Orange County Legislative Delegation meeting, someone from the Central Florida Hospitality and Lodging Association spoke and was specifically asked about that and declined at that time to take a position. So I'm also very curious to see kind of where the other hotels stand on that issue, considering it leaves their existing TDT dollars in place and just would it place a new additional up to 2-cent tax that goes to transportation. But yeah, if you get them on board, you got to think that it's got a pretty good shot of making it up in Tallahassee. But I don't know if we have an answer to that yet. Anything else from commission members? I got a couple things, but I want to open the floor. Zach is so delicately pressing his button.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to take one more opportunity to say it again, that we are existing in a system where our roads cannot deliver what we need them to, our transportation cannot deliver what we need it to, and we're tasked with trying to sort out a lot of problems that we didn't create and a lot of problems that we can't control. And I simply don't see how we can get to the outcome that we want without beginning to implement some kind of community-centric local control where the people who live in a neighborhood have the capacity to help enforce the safety of the roads, and through that to help generate more money and revenue for the roads in those communities. And I don't know what it will take to get there. Clearly it's I'm not a legislator, I'm not involved in drafting code for the county, but it's absolutely within reason. This is not, it's not a far-fetched solution that requires things that we don't already have. It's simply about taking the existing tools and systems that we have and retooling them to create a different outcome.
Thank you, Zach. A couple things from me. So we talked earlier about Division Zero. We talked about the 5-year capital improvement plan, also the long-range transportation plan, which I believe is 20 years or 25 years. Something we had talked about previously as a commission, I think this illustrates the importance of, is that we have no kind of middle range plan in terms of years. We have a 5-year, we have a 25-year, but we have nothing in between. I know MetroPlan has like a 10-year transportation plan. So when they have something like that, you can see what's coming, what's next on the prioritization list after that 5 years. But for us in Orange County, since we don't really have, it doesn't seem to me, even the long-range transportation plan is not really prioritized in the way that I can see it, ranked in that way. We don't really know what are the next few things off that 5-year transportation plan. And so when changes are made, it's not entirely clear, at least for me as a commission member, but also as a citizen, why those projects were chosen that come on and why other projects came off. Even in our less than 1 year as a commission, in our first budget cycle, when we saw a version of the budget in January through March, and then when it came to the time to present to the Board of County Commissioners in July, there had been changes made. And projects have come on, projects have fallen off, monies had changed. And there are perfectly valid reasons to do that. But to me, it's important for us as a commission and as members of the public to know kind of what are those next projects that are just outside the 5-year plan, and if there are changes being made, what's going to come on next, so we can offer our input on kind of that, those next. I always think of like the college basketball bracket they have when they talk about like the next 4 out, like who just missed the cut. We don't know what just missed the cut currently in Orange County because we don't have anything beyond a 5-year CIP until you get to a long-range transportation plan. So I think that's something that we need in Orange County, and that we should maybe as a board at some point make a formal recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners to request that be developed, so we can have a little more transparency and knowledge as a commission and as a public paying taxes where our monies are planned to be going and why things are changing that need to be changed. So that's something I want to bring up again because it's sticking in my mind.
Well, I agree with that. I can't believe that we don't do anything beyond 5 years, but I'd like to hear from staff as to why they don't do that. Maybe they have a legitimate reason. 5 years is a blink of an eye. You'd think we'd at least do 10 and something in between, so I agree with you on that.
Yeah. And then, so any other thoughts on that before I move on?
I think the salient point that I'm taking away from that is the lack of insight and clarity that you're speaking to, where there are decisions being made, and then the information as to why those decisions were made and how things played out and the changes that came from them are not necessarily communicated to the public in an effective way. So it almost should be like an annotation system, right? That tracks these individual transportation projects, where there's some kind of notation that goes, this was added to the 10-year plan on this date because of this and that, and then it was moved off of it on this date because of this and that. Budget was changed on this date. You know, I think that what we're lacking is that the tracking. And I think this goes back to another point that I've made maybe a few times but not hammered on as much. We're missing this additional layer of the county, which is technology. The county doesn't have its own public-facing technology systems like that, so it becomes very difficult for us to manage data in the way that the citizens expect to be able to access it.
I think the issue on that is, in the past, a number of years ago, they used to have right-of-way utilization maps, that this is where we would like to go 10 years from now. That became an issue because it put a constraint on the property, and then you get some condemnation issues. But I'd still like to hear from the county and the staff on that particular matter, because I think it's a good idea to plan, assuming you don't get in trouble. So.
Yeah, I think one of the goals of this commission has always been about prioritization of funding, right? Because we only have a certain level of funding. We've talked a lot about funding, ways we get more funding, but at the current state, we only have a certain amount of funding. So it's all about how we prioritize that funding. And if we as a commission, as an advisory board to the Board of County Commissioners, if we don't know how things are being prioritized beyond that 5 years, when we know there are tons more projects that are in that long-range transportation plan, but we don't know what's next, what's important. I don't think if we don't have that information, I'm not sure we can make an effective recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners on what we should be prioritizing. Hey, Lauren, you got some thoughts?
Yes, I do. So a couple things. So we are currently working on developing a 10-year roadway project plan.
Oh, great.
And we're working to try to ensure that those high injury networks are included in that 5-year plan as well. Sometimes some of the issues that we have with some of the larger projects that we do, for instance, obtaining enough right-of-way, utility conflicts. Right now, maybe we're having an issue with the railroad, right? So we can't really control the railroad. They do what they want to do. So the thought process is when we have situations where maybe we can't move forward with a project that you have already seen or have already been approved, maybe that funding can be shifted to some of those short and midterm solutions that we talked about on the high injury network. So we are working on that. Hope to see a presentation on that soon. I'm hoping for possibly January, because we'll be talking about budget, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. Also, as far as technology goes and information, we do have something called Monday.com. So it's a forward-facing platform that provides information on all of our roadway projects. So that is something that we have, and we can be happy. I'll be happy to discuss that a little bit more if the commission would like to see how that works and kind of provide that information. So.
Yeah, I didn't know that existed. That sounds great. I'd love to learn more about that. Okay, thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Couple other things from me. So our email went out earlier this week. Our next commission meeting is Monday, December 15th, out in District 1. They'll start at 6 o'clock. But I had the idea, I think it would be good for us to have another working session. We've had a couple so far on the budget that the Board of County Commissioners has so generously provided us and ways to use that. I would like to have another conversation just to make sure that we are focused on spending the money in the ways that are consistent with the charter's requirements of study and evaluating different things in our transportation system. So I just want to take another brief look at some of the things that we are looking at doing and making sure we're acting within the bounds of the charter and making sure that we're making a very wise decision with what the county commission has provided us. So if you can check I think we're planning on doing that downtown before the meeting. I think we're thinking at 3 o'clock. Is that what we're thinking? Okay. So if you can look at your schedules now or do so afterwards, either one, we can talk about it now if you'd like, or just let staff know if you would be available to attend a meeting on Monday, December 15th at 3 o'clock in the downtown comptroller's office prior to our regular scheduled meeting in District 1. So that's that. So let us know about that, because I think it's an important conversation to make sure we're doing the right thing for Orange County. Okay, and just on a personal level, it was mentioned earlier by Humberto during his presentation. There was a tragedy over the weekend in District 2 in Rod's district where 3 teenagers lost their lives, and I just found us profoundly saddened by that, as we all are when you have such young lives taken away. And I know recently, a couple months ago, there was another fatality of a young person in my district, in District 4, on Landstar Boulevard. And I just think that I just want to reiterate, we can never lose sight of what Humberto said, that every death is unacceptable. And this was an unacceptable event that we have to do whatever we can to try to make sure it doesn't happen again. And we have over 40,000 roadway deaths every year in this country. And I think to a certain extent we have accepted it as just how it works here in America. And I personally, I don't accept it. That's one of the reasons I sit here. One of the reasons that, as Commissioner said, I sit on so many boards. Other than my love of unpaid work, it's just that I'm extremely passionate about making our roadways safer for everyone. And it's not acceptable what happened last weekend. We have to do everything we can to stop tragedies like that from happening in the future. And I just want us to never lose sight of that, of the importance of it. So that's it for me. Jose.
The challenge will still be that it takes some money. And I don't know what's going to happen next year, but I'm listening to a lot of elected officials, and they're telling me that there will be no conversation about raising the sales tax next year, and perhaps for 2028. And we don't know if Tallahassee is going to come with a plan that allow the counties and cities to raise their sales tax to offset whatever losses by losing the income from homestead property taxes, increase in exemption. So we still got to go out there and tell everybody that there's a cost for everything. We have an issue in the county with speed. I see it every day. Our residents are just speeding. They're just utterly breaking the law. And it's mind-boggling why they don't wake up 15 minutes early, right? It's just outstanding. And it's not going to stop. I see it every day, and it's going to be a challenge. And it takes money. And we got to do a great job of convincing the residents that this is for you. This is for your life. This is for a better being. And I'm just waiting to see what Tallahassee is going to bring forth in January. I'll be there for a whole week in January. And I'll be talking to, hopefully, even knock on the door of the governor's office, okay? But we need to find out if they're going to say less money coming from homestead exemptions, you raise the sales tax, or you can use that pot of money to also deal with roads and transit. So I'll give you an update on that. On a housekeeping note, Brian, I spoke to a newly elected Commissioner Tom Keene for District 1 last night, and he told me that the whole issue in Narcoossee Road is that the UCF engineering team did a study, and they say that they can only shave off about 36 seconds by synchronizing the traffic light. So I also texted Commissioner Maribel Gomez-Cordero, and she would like for you to circle back with UCF and new elected Tom Keene to see what is going on. Maybe we'd like to do another study, because Maribel asked me who's going to pay for that study. So that's something you can circle back about Narcoossee Road. I live there, right there in Lake Nona, so it's also a big item for me. And I'd like to give a hat off to my son Omar, who's here with me. He works in Florida Mall. He's a French student, and he sees as a younger person the issue about speeding. And I always tell him, son, stay on the right lane, don't speed, be careful out there. And when I go through Narcoossee Road, there's 2 offices there. So now I go back with him home, and after 10 o'clock, there's 2 officers there checking for speeding. Great job, right? They do it in Narcoossee Road. So my concern that I made the point to the commission is that why they don't do it in International Drive. I just want to avoid a British or Brazilian, somebody coming from Europe here on vacation, getting hit, being on the media because somehow we just don't observe the laws right there in International Drive. So that's just my points for tonight. And thank you very much for all of you and everybody here on staff for putting a great show. And thank you for everybody here in the Comptroller's office and Lauren. this is pretty good. I like it, and we'll talk more in the next meeting from me.
Thank you, Jose. Any other closing comments from my fellow commission members? Okay, so like I mentioned before, our next meeting is Monday, December 15th, out in District 1, out in the West Orange Recreation Center, I believe. So, and I want to thank Jose's son for joining. I like how he's bringing all the family to us. That's great. Do we have cousins? Do we have aunts and uncles? Can we get them here? But I want to thank all members of the public who joined us here this evening and the millions watching at home on Orange TV. We are adjourned, and we'll see you next month.